Hello everyone and welcome back finally to another doll customizing video. It has taken me a while to film another doll video, but I am finally back with an Animal Crossing tutorial. As you can see, I have already made Reese and Isabelle from my Animal Crossing series, and today I am making Cyrus, who is the partner of Reese in the game. Even though Cyrus is my latest YouTube doll, he isn't the only one I have created since the Kawaii Winter Girl. I just haven't made videos for them, but if you want to see pictures, they are on my Instagram, so go check them out there. But other than that, let's go ahead and get started. The sketch I made for Cyrus is pretty simple compared to the one I had made for Reese, mostly because I had already created Reese, so I had an idea of how I wanted to make her partner. I ended up ordering quite a few Ever After High and Monster High dolls because I wasn't sure the skin tone or the doll shape mold that I wanted to use, and I ended up going with Deuce because I knew I was going to give Cyrus hair wefts, so I didn't want to use a doll that had holes for rerouting. And because I did not have a sander or a sanding paper, I ended up using my X-Acto knife to scrape off the tattoos on his arm, which I didn't really have to do since I'm giving Cyrus a long sleeve shirt, but you know, I just wanted to make the whole body cohesive, so that's what I did. Next, taking my 100% pure acetone and a few Q-tips, I wipe away his factory face. After removing his face, I tried to remove his plastic hair mold using pliers and an X-Acto knife, which proved very difficult, especially at this time because I had long nails and I didn't want to risk breaking them, but after cutting and pulling, I managed to get it off. As you can see, I did have to cut the plastic head mold that he had originally during the process of removing it, but it didn't bother me because I'm not gonna use it in the future, so here I am with a clean slate to get started. And taking a quick break from the head, I repaint these Monster High male shoes and his original hands using black acrylic paint, which I also did for Reese because it gives the illusion of hooves that the alpacas have in the game. As you can see, I kept the shoes pretty simple. I basically just painted them one layer black, and this is how they turned out. And for the gloves, the joint actually scraped off the paint very quickly because it was a pretty tight joint, and I didn't really worry about it because I'm giving him a long sleeve shirt, so it'll cover the joint up anyways. This is my first attempt at Cyrus's face up. As you can see, I ended up filling his head using hot glue, which I ended up peeling off later. And his face up I wasn't too crazy about. His eyebrows weren't the shape I wanted, and his eyes weren't aligning up the way I wanted them, so I ended up just scrapping it and getting started with his hair. This is the acrylic yarn I'm using for Cyrus's hair wefts. It is 100% acrylic, and it is the perfect shade compared to his character design. It is a very close match. And since he has short hair, I cut strips to about 6.5 inches because they're going to be short anyways, and when I pull on them, they're going to get short, so I didn't want to waste any yarn that I didn't need to. Next, using a dog hair brush, I slowly pull out the threads in order to make it fluffy. Next, I use my hair straightener on a very low heat setting to iron the hair to be smooth and shiny. For Cyrus's hair, I followed the same technique I did for Reese's hair, which is laying down a strip of hot glue and placing the yarn wefts onto it and using my fingernail to push the hair into it. It stays pretty secure, so this is the method I usually use. I follow the same technique going around his hair, going up one layer at a time and making sure that there's not really too many bald patches, especially since this blue is a lighter color. I don't want his skin to show through. I also realized at this point that I would need to cut off his human ears because they would get in the way of the hairstyle, and don't be like me where you cut towards yourself. That is not the proper way to cut something, especially with a sharp X-Acto knife. I'm 20 years old and I still surprise myself at how irresponsible I can be sometimes. This is about halfway of layering the yarn wefts. This is what I like to call a retired clown hairstyle phase. It looks pretty funny, but this is pretty much the progress I've gotten to, and it looks pretty good. And after a few more layers of yarn wefts and a middle part, this is the progress I have made. Next, I move on to the face up before completing his hairstyle later on. This is my second attempt at Cyrus's face up. I actually do like his eyebrows this time, but his face was a little too heavy for me, and the eye pupils were kind of oval shaped, so I ended up completely wiping off his face and starting again. After another layer of MSC, I reblushed the face, and the struggle that I had with Cyrus's face was matching it to the cartoony look that Reese has, which is actually something I realized later on that I didn't need to do, and that's what helped me finally finish his face up for like the third time. So after I realized this, it was pretty easy for me to finish up the face up. I think that's what was making me struggle so much, because I wanted it to match Reese's cartoony look, and that is not the style that Cyrus has. Cyrus is actually only the second male doll I have worked on. The first one was the Dylan Gardner doll, which I do have a video on. It's one of my early videos, and that one was pretty easy to make an eye shape for because it was an Alistair doll and it had a mold that I could follow. Next, I take my light brown watercolor pencil to sketch in the eye shape and the eye crease. I did this on this doll especially because I wasn't sure about the placement or the shape yet, so this allowed me to draw a very light shadow and sketch, and then I went in with a darker brown to make it more defined. I also used my peach watercolor pencil to draw in the waterline, which I ended up going over later using the white in order to get the eyes a little bit bigger, so I didn't really need to do that, but as you can see here, I'm adding the whites to the eyes, and because I was having so much issues drawing the face, I ended up just drawing the whole eye white, and I saved the pupil towards the end because I knew I was going to use a black and a dark blue color, so it would be easy to cover up the white. Before spraying another layer of MSC, I add a highlight to the cupid's bow of his mouth, and I use the same light brown watercolor pencil to add shadows. And again, I go over his eyebrows using a gray watercolor pencil, and as you can see here, this is a pretty good shot of his eyebrow shape. The ends are actually turned up because that is kind of how Cyrus has his eyebrows in a few pictures that I saw, so I really wanted that characteristic to be noticeable on this doll. So in order to keep this video a little shorter, it's still going to be pretty long though, I'm not going to lie, but in this layer of MSC and the next layer of MSC, I pretty much follow the same steps, which is reblushing his face and going over his eyebrows using a gray and blue watercolor pencil, and I also go over the whites in his eyes, and I even add the freckles that he has in his character. For the freckles on Cyrus's face, I wanted to make sure that they were even and noticeable because I made it pretty noticeable on Reese's face that her cheeks were pink, just like her character design. I really like that about these two characters, that they have distinct markings, so I wanted to make sure that they were very obvious on these two characters. After another spray of MSC, I take a white watercolor pencil to add highlights to the face. I go to the under part of his eyebrows, to the eye crease, and the inner part of his eyes. I next take this light gray watercolor pencil to sketch in the pupil shape. I use a light colored pencil for the same reason I use the light brown to sketch in the eyes, because the light colors are much easier to erase than a dark color. Sketching the pupil using the light gray watercolor pencil also allows me to make sure that the placement is correct, and I also use it for the center part of his pupil to make sure that that part is matching up as well, because I don't want him to look like he's looking in two different directions. And after making sure that the placement is correct, I finally go in with my black watercolor pencil to the top part of his eyeliner and to his pupil because I want to make it very distinct like Reese's. The black watercolor pencil also makes face-ups look more serious, which is definitely good in this case because Cyrus does have a more serious vibe compared to his partner Reese. I pretty much follow the same steps that I do for all my face-ups, which is drawing in the center pupil and adding the eye shine. I also added the same eye shine that I did for Reese, which is the heart, because I wanted them to match. I think it's a very cute feature for both of them to be showing. After I finish the pupil, I also add a gray under eyeliner to him because it didn't feel finished. I wanted that slight shadow underneath his eye. But after this, I pretty much spray him with another layer of MSC and go over all the same colors just to make them more saturated. And I also add in his eyebrow hairs using a black watercolor pencil and a white for a few shines, I guess, to the eyebrow hair. After taking him out of his wrap and finishing him up, he is left like this, and obviously he's still missing his hair poof, but we will add that towards the end. Next, I want to work on the clothes. For the pants, I used an existing pattern that I bought from DG Requiem on Etsy. The pattern I'm using is specifically for Ever After High male dolls, and I didn't realize that the Ever After High male dolls had a much bigger waist than the male Monster High dolls, so I did have to modify them. I actually ended up making 2 pairs because the first pair I made too big, and then when I tried to make them smaller, I made them way too small. But this second pair actually came out almost perfect on him. The waist fits him pretty snug, and I finish it up with Velcro. Moving on to the shirt, I had these 3 male Monster High shirts that I could pick from, and I ended up going with the long sleeve because that was pretty much the shape I needed anyways. And for the shirt, I ended up taking it apart and sketching it out on paper in order to make the pattern pieces. This pattern also allowed me to give him a turtleneck, which is what I did for Reese, so this pattern ended up being pretty much perfect for him. And for those of you who have seen my Reese tutorial, you know that I added a lace trim to the bottom of her dress, which isn't necessarily something that she has in her original character design. So for Cyrus, in order to give him that cutesy vibe as well, I found this patterned plaid fabric for his top, and I think it worked really well because it has a strong blue color that he has in his character design, but it also has a pink that ties into Reese. I'm pretty bad at explaining what I'm doing when I'm sewing clothes, so I'm pretty much just showing you here what I'm doing. And as you can see, I added the turtleneck because I really like that feature for both characters. So I'm almost done with the shirt here. As you can see, I just need to finish up the sides and the sleeves. I actually really like this shirt. I didn't even think about adding a patterned shirt to him, but I'm really glad I did because the pink kind of ties in back to Reese and it looks really cute in the photos. And following the same steps I did for Reese, I made him a matching pair of ears. And again, to save some time, I followed the same steps I did for Reese's apron for Cyrus's apron. I just made it a bit more bigger and boxy to make it more appropriate for him. So I wasn't really sure how I was going to make the poof in Cyrus's hair, but this is what I ended up doing. I took the fluff from the yarn wefts when I was brushing them out, and I mixed it using fabric glue, and I made this kind of stiff ball out of the yarn, and then I took straight yarn wefts and wrapped it around it into this dome shape, and that's pretty much all I did. And then I glued it to the top of his head and kind of fixed it into that shape that he has. The poof is a bit more rounder at the tip, but I think the shape still looks similar to the character, so this is what I ended up going with. And I'm so excited to finally finish this doll because I really wanted Reese to have her partner, and I will show you final photos now. The lighting in these photos looks so good, and fun fact, I almost got frostbite on my fingers because it was so cold outside. It was like negative 12 degrees in Minnesota, but the photos are definitely worth it because he looks so good. And obviously I couldn't take photos of him without Reese by his side, and these are the photos I took of them together. They look so cute, and I even added the little amiibo characters and the wooden plaques that I made for both of them. And here is one with Isabelle. So sadly, this is the final part of the video. Let me know what you guys think of Cyrus in the comments below. If you guys want to see more photos of Cyrus and Reese together, I will be putting photos on my Instagram, and I will also be doing a giveaway soon on there, so if you guys want to enter, feel free to follow me there. And I believe my next doll video will be a Valentine's Day doll video, so stay tuned for that. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in another doll customizing video.